Project Pegasus Part 3 resumes in Marvel 2-in-1 issue 55. Our story opens on Quasar, The Thing, Dr. O'Connell, Dr. William Foster, and two unnamed Project Pegasus employees playing poker. Ben makes a comment that Quasar is losing, but judging by the piles of chips, that doesn't seem to be the case. A priority red alarm has gone off and Quasar leaps into action. This is one of the first times we see him stepping up and taking on a leadership role. Everybody follows Quasar to the closest security monitor, where they identify two security problems. The first breach is located in the compound, where Project Pegasus keeps the human subjects it is studying. The second breach is in the nuclear research module. Quasar takes after the nuclear level and asks everybody else to head towards the compound. And wait a second, is Quasar using yet another ventilation or utility shaft to get there? Project Pegasus really needs to work on getting those holes closed up. The next exchange between Ben and Dr. Foster is really strange. Dr. Foster was present at the death of Atom Smasher, but that doesn't explain why he should feel responsible if the Atom Smasher somehow post-mortem latently triggered something. In fact, there's no need to think that the Atom Smasher is involved at all. More than likely, it's just a ruse for Dr. Foster to follow along and try to help out without revealing his secret identity to Ben. As they head downward, the elevator suddenly stops between levels. Our heroes are unaware that Nuklo has entered the elevator shaft below them. After a brief moment, the elevator begins moving again, but in the wrong direction. And who the hell designed this elevator? As it starts to move up, the ceiling doesn't move with it? That seems like a major design flaw. As the thing pushes back, Nuklo enjoys the challenge from below. Then Ben drops an obscure reference comparing their situation to The Perils of Pauline, a 1914 serial melodrama. More than likely, Ben is referring to the Universal comedic remake of the film from 1967. If you think you know which version of the film he's talking about or know the exact scene, please let me know in the comments section below. Ben fights to hold off the upward pressure, afraid that Dr. Foster will be killed if he gives in. Suddenly the pressure lets up. Ben turns and is shocked to discover that Dr. Foster is the Black-Goliath. Ben first met the Black-Goliath in Marvel 2-in-1 issue 24. Slowly, Black-Goliath is capable of reversing the direction of the elevator. A perturbed Nuklo walks away, hoping to find Dr. Leitner to get him to play with him. The Thing then drops what could have been perceived as a racist comment, although Black-Goliath doesn't seem to notice. Ben says he would put in a good word for Dr. Foster if he ever wanted to get a job as an elevator operator. It used to be that elevators had an operator, and the majority of these positions were filled by black men. This in many ways led to broader social change by allowing African American men a way out of poverty in the early 1900s, and led to one of the earliest examples of successful African American collective bargaining via the unionization of elevator operators by civil rights activist A. Philip Randolph in 1917. By having Ben make such a comment, the writers show extremely poor taste, especially considering Dr. Foster is a renowned biochemist who has worked alongside Dr. Hank Pym and Tony Stark, and he ran the research and development section of Stark International. Black-Goliath explains to Ben how he got his powers through an improved version of Hank Pym's growth formula. The authors then surprised me by making the progressive move of having the Thing point out that there isn't any need for Dr. Foster to put Black out in front of his superhero name. He suggests that Dr. Foster drop Goliath as well, due to his being a bad guy in the Bible, and he should call himself Giant Man so he doesn't have to change the big G on the front of his uniform. Dr. Foster doesn't think that Hank Pym would mind, and he agrees to try it as he slips on his mask. Now that he has the areas around his eyes covered, nobody will know who he is. The two of them reach the compound and join several Project Pegasus guards who inform them that Nuklo is on the loose. Meanwhile, Quasar is looking for the source of the alarm on the nuclear research level. This is the first time we see Quasar using his energy bands to wrap himself in a protective aura. The release of Nuklo has accelerated the reactor's energy conversion. Quasar finds that the failsafe systems haven't kicked in because somebody has tampered with the control rods. The entire compound is on the verge of a nuclear explosion. Once again, Quasar is forced to think outside the box and come up with new ways to use his energy bands. He uses them as a dampening rod to hold back the impending nuclear explosion. The story once again switches over to Thundra and her new career in wrestling as she prepares to show down against Titania in Madison Square Garden. Somewhere along the way, Thundra has gotten on board with the choreographed fighting and is taking part in throwing matches one way or the other as she checks in with her promoter Mr. Oglethorpe to ensure that she is slated to win this match. In the other corner, we see that Titania is preparing to go off script by drugging her opponent with a needle. As the fight begins, we can see that there is still bad blood between the two of them from their encounter in the previous issue. All the same, they both seem intent on doing their job and playing it up for the crowd. Titania uses her drug needle to slow Thundra down and win the fight. Herkimer takes a large loss on the fight, and as far as I know, never makes another appearance in the Marvel Universe. The Thing and Giant Man are in hot pursuit of Nuklo, and Ben starts to ponder if Dr. Lightner might be behind all the recent goings-ons at Project Pegasus, but keeps his thoughts to himself. The two of them spot Nuklo, but before Ben will let Giant Man run in to attack, he somehow finds a lead panel and he wraps that around the Doctor's hands to protect him from radiation. Personally, I think that if Nuklo is putting out enough radiation to accelerate the nuclear reactor, then everybody's pretty much already fucked on that front. But, comics. While the Thing was making lead gloves for Giant Man, one of the project scientists sneaked in and is trying to reason with Nuklo. Giant Man rushes in, and despite Ben having warned him about keeping his distance, Giant Man tackles Nuklo into the next room. Ben is flummoxed by his behavior, but decides to hang back. Giant Man continues to beat on Nuklo in the next room, thinking to himself that he wants at least one solid win on his superhero scorecard before it's too late. Yet another hint that something might be wrong with Dr. Foster that he hasn't revealed. Ben offers to help in the fight, but ironically, Giant Man wants to teach Nuklo a lesson about destroying government property. Remember that it was Ben who tore down the front doors of Project Pegasus and stole a plane the first time he stopped by the project? Keep it in mind for later in the series as well, when Ben once again takes to destroying government property. Nuklo gets a good blow in on Giant Man, and Ben takes the opportunity to land the hardest punch he can muster. The blow sends Nuklo reeling into the null grav generator, which leaves him hanging like a marionette. A word that is used on purpose, I'm sure, considering the origins of the scientists who just witnessed the fight. The vacant look in the eyes show that Nuklo didn't have the intellect to know what was going on. Dr. Henry Sorrell enters the room declaring that he is Nuklo's guardian, lets them know that he had the situation under control, and berates them for beating up and victimizing somebody with a slow intellect. This isn't the first time that the Thing has made this mistake, and Dr. Sorrell's words bring Wondar to mind. Dr. Sorrell looks very different than the last time he appeared in Marvel 2-in-1, issue number 9, where he appeared as the villain Radion and fought alongside the Puppet Master. He retreated when he got too close to Wondar, whose power latently absorbs radiation. Despite having run across the Thing previously, he shows no sign of recognition. The story switches over to Wondar, who had been in an unresponsive coma for months. We are shown a montage of past events. This is the first time that we see Wondar moving from his previous childlike state into one of reflection, as he ponders his past and looks back on the parade of beings that were determined to hurt him. I don't know why a gorilla is shown, as Wondar never fought a gorilla. He let one out of its cage at Central Park Zoo that the Thing fought against. For the full story, watch my Wondar origin video. Despite the rough start, Wondar remembers his Uncle Benji in a positive light, along with Namorita and Annie Christopher. He wonders why they have forsaken him. He doesn't understand why his Uncle Benji let the men strap him down and hurt him after Ben promised that he wouldn't let anybody harm Wondar. Since that time, he has regressed into his own mind, seeking the shelter and isolation he had once found in the womb of the ship he grew up inside. He remembers being moved from room to room within Project Pegasus and tries to figure out why all the lights went out after each move. For a moment, Wondar is awakened by the answer. He's doing it with the power of the Cosmic Cube. He drifts back to sleep with the promise that nothing will stop him the next time he awakens. The Cosmic Cubes are known to be/contain/transform into sentient beings, and it would seem that this would be the most likely source of the whispering dialogue that takes place in the final panel of this chapter. The story continues in the next chapter and the next episode. Feel free to push any of the buttons below. I'm out.